In our morning devotions here at Reform Studios, we continue going through Joshua chapter 7. And this morning, we focus on verse 4 and verse 5 as we continue under this broad theme, Achan's sin, lessons not to be forgotten. In Joshua chapter 7, verse 4 and verse 5, we actually see that sin renders God's people spiritually weak and unable to progress. Sin renders God's people spiritually weak and unable to progress. Read with me Joshua 7, verse 4 and verse 5. So about 3,000 men went up there from the people, and they fled before the men of Ai. And the men of Ai killed about 36 of their men and chased them before the gate as far as Shibarim, and struck them at the descent, and the hearts of the people melted and became as water. Sin renders God's people spiritually powerless. Ai was a small city in comparison to Jericho, but they were defeated. The people of Israel were defeated, and this is the first recorded defeat in the book of Joshua where the Jews or the Israelites were killed. And the reason was that there was sin in their midst, sin which they had not yet at this point been aware of, but God was aware of that sin. God knew about that sin. Yet the children of Israel thought it was business as usual. They will go on, defeat, and move on. But what we see is that the Lord, who had given them specific instructions, could not allow them to continue in their conquest of the land until they dealt with the sin in their midst. Sin rendered the people of Israel spiritually weak, and they could not go beyond the city of Ai. They were no longer sensitive to the leading of the Holy Spirit, to the leading of God who had instructed them. We also see that there were also a lack of seeking God's direction. When you go back to Joshua chapter 5, verse 13 to 16, and Joshua chapter 6, verse 1 to 3, before attacking Jericho, Joshua sought the face of the Lord. Before progressing, Joshua sought the face of the Lord, indicating to us that at this moment they were sensitive to the leading of God. They did not want to proceed. They did not want to conquer Jericho. They did not want to step into the land of Canaan without being assured that the Lord was with them. And now with the sin of Achan, we actually see that they are spiritually weak, unable to progress in their commands to conquer the land. But also see there's nothing mentioned of taking the Ark of the Covenant into the battle. Remember, the Ark symbolized the presence and the power of God. They went into battle without the presence of the Lord symbolized in the Ark. So therefore they were weak and they could not progress. And what we see here is that they depended on human wisdom when Joshua listened to the spies that went into the land and the report that they brought, thinking this is another victory in their hands, not seeking the face of God. Now, sin in God's people renders them spiritually weak. This is what C.S. Lewis says, and let me quote. C.S. Lewis expressed these truths clearly. He says, "Indeed, the only way in which I can make real to myself what theology teaches about the seriousness of sin is to remember that every sin is a distortion of an energy breathed into us, an energy which, if not thus distorted, would have blossomed into one of those holy acts whereof God did it and I did it, are both true description. We poison the wine as He pours it into us. Murder a melody He would play with us as the instruments. We misrepresent the self-portrait He would paint. Hence, all sin, whatever else it is blasphemy to God. And friends, sin in God's people renders them spiritually weak and unable to progress in the things of God. Therefore, any sin must be repented of, otherwise we will be spiritually weak.